Coming back early wasn't part of the plan. I had just spent 10 emotionally wrecked days in Texas, helping my sister go through the remnants of our father's life. Boxes of old photo albums, letters in faded handwriting. His old tools still lined up in perfect rows like he might walk back in at any moment. We'd fought, cried, forgiven, and planned a funeral that somehow felt both too formal and not nearly enough. By the time I boarded the plane back home, I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't even thinking straight. I just knew I didn't want to be in that town anymore. I missed home. Or, more accurately, I missed the idea of home. I didn't tell Brooke I was coming back early. It wasn't meant to be a gotcha moment. I just wanted to walk through the front door, hug my wife, sit down, and maybe finally take a deep breath that didn't taste like grief. But the house was too quiet. The sun had just started to dip beneath the trees out back, painting everything in a warm gold glow. I remember that, weirdly, the soft light on the walls, the smell of her jasmine candle still faintly lingering in the air. Our cat, Ollie, meowed at me from the staircase but didn't come down. Everything looked normal, too normal, until I walked into the kitchen. Her laptop sat open on the table, glowing like it had been waiting for me. She always closed it when she left, even if just to grab the mail. That's what struck me first. Then I saw the message. The screen was still on the company messaging app, WorkWire or TeamChat or whatever they used now. And there it was, plain as day. Miss your hands already. Can't wait for tonight. The message hit me like a punch. It wasn't just the words, it was the tone. Teasing. Familiar. Int asterisk mate. I froze. The sender's name was Ashley, but that didn't comfort me. The vibe of that message? That wasn't two women joking around. That was a man trying to be seductive, or at least someone trying to sound like one. I stared at the screen, unblinking, heart thudding so hard it drowned out every other sound in the house. For a second, I actually wondered if I was hallucinating, if grief had rewired my brain somehow and I was seeing things that weren't there. But no, it was real, and Brooke hadn't even logged out. I didn't click anything. I didn't scroll. I just backed away, hands shaking slightly, and sat down at the kitchen island. I stared at the fridge, the magnets, the grocery list she'd written 2 days earlier. Frozen peas, almond milk, dog food, though we didn't even have a dog. Just a joke between us. We always said we'd get one after we figured our schedules out. I guess that was the first sign, really. The fact that we were still waiting. Half an hour passed. Maybe more. I heard the garage door open. Her car. My chest clenched. I didn't know what I was going to say, or if I was going to say anything at all. Brooke came through the door with a grocery bag in her arm and sunglasses perched on her head. She looked surprised, but only for a split second. "Oh," she said, setting the bag down and giving me a tight-lipped smile. "You're back early. Everything okay?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I caught an earlier flight. Just wanted to be home." She walked over, leaned in for a hug. I let her. She smelled like citrus and something faintly floral. The same perfume she wore to her office functions. "How's Claire?" she asked, pulling away. "She's managing." She started unpacking the groceries, yogurt, a 6-pack of hard seltzer, frozen dumplings. Then her eyes flicked to the laptop. I watched it happen. That half-second of recognition, of calculation. "Oh," she said, casual as can be. "If you saw that message on the laptop, it was nothing. Just a joke. We were messing with one of the new hires, Ashley. Long story." She laughed a little, like she was brushing dust off a table. "After the corporate party last night, we were pulling a prank on him. Or her. I don't even know what pronouns Ashley uses. It was harmless." I didn't respond. She kept talking like she was trying to fill a vacuum. You know how people get after a few drinks. Everyone in the chat was sending goofy messages, pretending to be someone else. We were just messing around. You should have seen the look on his face when he thought someone was flirting with him. Classic. I nodded, slowly, trying not to let the weight in my chest show. "Sounds fun." She smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. She picked up the seltzer, opened one, took a long sip and said, "I'm gonna hop in the shower. You okay with dumplings for dinner?" "Sure," I said. Whatever. She disappeared upstairs. The sound of running water filled the silence. I sat there alone, staring at the spot where she'd stood. The light had shifted again, turned colder, flatter. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. I couldn't tell if I felt angry or just hollow. Was I being paranoid? Maybe. But I also knew my wife. And Brooke. She could lie if she had to. I'd seen it before. Little things. Like when she told our friends we loved that awful Airbnb in Vermont. Or when she told my mom her pie was the best thing she'd ever tasted. Harmless stuff. But the smile was always the same. And that's what scared me. Because that was the same smile she gave me just now. The one that said, there's nothing to worry about. The one that said, don't ask questions. I didn't accuse her. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask a follow-up. But something had shifted inside me. The kind of shift you feel in your gut, not a loud crash, but a quiet slide, like a book falling off a shelf in another room. I knew then that this wasn't just about one message. It was about something deeper. Something that had been building for a while, hiding in plain sight. And now I couldn't unsee it. That night, we ate dinner like nothing had happened. She asked me about Texas and I gave her the surface-level version. She talked about work, a new project, some meeting that ran too long. We watched an episode of a show we'd started weeks ago and barely paid attention to. But I noticed how she kept her phone close. How she angled it away. How she tapped out a message quickly and then smiled faintly when a reply came in. I noticed everything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was sitting across from my wife. I felt like I was sitting across from someone I didn't fully recognize. Someone playing a part. And I started to wonder how long I'd been asleep at the wheel. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there in bed beside Brooke as locked on the ceiling, feeling like I was floating above my own life. She fell asleep quickly, too quickly. Like someone with nothing to fear. Her breathing was steady, peaceful, like she had buried the day behind her without a second thought. But for me, everything had changed. That one message, that one perfect storm of timing and bad instinct, had cracked open a vault of buried doubts. Thoughts I'd shrugged off, waved away, blamed on stress or coincidence, they came flooding back. And now, in the stillness of that room, they took shape. It was subtle at first. A few months ago, she started working late more often. At first, I didn't question it. Brooke had always been dedicated more than most, honestly. But then it became routine. Wednesdays, Fridays, the occasional Saturday team catch-up. The company had just landed some new client, she said. Deadlines were brutal. Nothing unusual until I noticed that she never brought work home anymore. No paperwork spread across the table. No late-night conference calls. Just late returns and short explanations. And the clothes. That was another thing. Brooks always had a sense of style. Classy, tailored, practical. But lately she'd been dressing differently. Tighter skirts. Low-cut blouses. Heels I hadn't seen in years. The kind of outfits that made you do a double take. When I asked her once, she laughed and said, corporate's going more casual now, but still chic. Think Mad Men, minus the S***ism. At the time, I bought it. But now, the memory sits different. Then there were the girls' nights. She used to be all about posting group photos when they went out, boomerangs of wine glasses clinking, dancing in heels, that kind of thing. But lately? Nothing. No tags, no stories, no check-ins. Just fake texts, heading out with the girls. Don't wait up. Once, I asked if she had any photos from their night at that rooftop bar downtown. She said her phone had died. Shrugged it off. But I remember her plugging in that same phone when she got home that night, screen still glowing. Another night, I caught a glimpse of her lock screen. New wallpaper, some abstract black and white photo. But what caught my eye was the notification badge. Her messaging app had a different icon than before. I asked her about it, just casually. She said it was the new work messenger. They made us switch platforms again. Something about security. She tossed the explanation out like it was no big deal, but the logo didn't match the one I'd seen in her emails. I let it slide. I always let it slide. Even the weekends started to shift. Brooke used to treasure our lazy Saturdays. We'd sleep in, grab brunch at this little spot on Main, then do chores or just hang out around the house. Lately, she'd started going solo, morning fitness classes, massage appointments, spontaneous spa days. Said she needed me time. I supported it. I wanted her to feel recharged. But what I noticed was that she never looked more energized when she got home. If anything, she looked spent. Like she'd given her best somewhere else. One Saturday, I asked if I could tag along to her yoga class. It's women only, she said instantly. Too quickly. Then she softened it. Besides, I know that's not really your thing. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her keys, and left without waiting for a reply. I watched from the window as she drove off. The class supposedly ended at noon. She got back at 2:30. She said she grabbed lunch with Madison and Jenna afterward. I asked if they were still doing that joint birthday party thing later in the month. She blinked at me. What birthday thing? She asked. Jenna had told me about it weeks earlier when we bumped into each other at the grocery store. That was the moment I started writing things down. Not to confront her. Not yet. I just needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. I noticed her new routines. Morning runs she didn't use to take. A new gym bag. She got new AirPods and said her old ones died, but when I asked what happened to them, she said she lost them. Then 2 days later, I found them in the glove box of her car, perfectly fine. She said, "Oh, I forgot I had a backup pair." Another time she came home with a faint sunburn. A perfect outline of tank top straps. I asked if she had lunch outside. Yeah, we sat on the patio at work. Just for a bit. But that day had been cloudy all morning and rained by 2 p.m. I remembered because I got caught in it running from my car to a client meeting. I had to wring out my socks afterward. And still, I doubted myself. Because that's what trust does, doesn't it? It convinces you to second-guess your instincts instead of the person you're supposed to be closest to. You think, maybe I'm imagining this. Maybe I'm just tired. Maybe the stress is warping my perception. But the pattern was building. And the worst part was how she started treating me. That shift in tone, subtle but sharp. Less warmth. Less patience. More sighs when I asked basic questions. More eye rolls when I offered to help with anything. Like I was some obligation she had to tolerate instead of someone she'd once chosen. I remember one night, she got a call around 11 p.m. I was half asleep. She grabbed the phone and walked into the bathroom to take it. Closed the door. Didn't turn the light on. I could see the glow of the screen under the crack of the door. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. When she came out, she said it was just Jenna freaking out about a guy again. I didn't ask any more questions. But I lay awake for hours listening to her breathing. Wondering if any of it was real anymore. It's not like we were perfect before. We had arguments. We both worked too much. But we used to fight and then come back to each other. There was effort. Presence. Real effort. Yeah? It felt like she was always somewhere else. And the more I thought back on the past few months, the more I realized how many questions I had avoided asking. How many stories I had accepted without pushback. Not because I trusted her, but because I was afraid of the answer. The next morning, I woke up and stared at her sleeping form. Her back turned. Breathing slow. Peaceful. I reached for my phone and opened the cloud drive we had set up years ago. Originally, it was for vacation photos and tax documents. Something convenient we could both access. She had probably forgotten it even existed. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, but I was about to find something that would make everything click into place. I couldn't explain why I opened the cloud account that morning. Maybe I was just chasing ghosts. Maybe I wanted to prove myself wrong, to find nothing, to feel stupid, and finally let all this paranoia go. But deep down, I already knew. We set it up years ago, back when everything was simple. Vacations, receipts, photo albums labeled with dumb inside jokes. Brooke's ugly cactus phase. Florida trip where Mark got sun poisoning. It had always been our digital junk drawer, something neither of us had touched in forever. Except she had. When I logged in, I saw a sync had run just 2 days earlier. Automatically, probably from her phone. My stomach flipped. I scrolled down the recent uploads. Photos. New ones. 32 to be exact. Most were mundane, a selfie of her in the car, a sh*t of a salad, the edge of a conference table. Harmless at first glance. Then I saw the others. The first one hit me like a hammer. Brooke in that same black dress she'd once said was too fancy for office stuff, standing outside a house I didn't recognize. She was smiling, genuinely smiling, the way she used to smile when we first started dating. Her head tilted slightly, hair falling just right. She looked radiant. Next photo, her leaning against a man's shoulder. Third, his arm wrapped around her waist. Tight. Familiar. I felt a chill crawl up my spine as I zoomed in. The man's face came into focus and the world tilted sideways. Jonathan. Of course it was him. We'd met once, briefly, at a company mixer. Tall, charming, confident in that way guys like me have to practice. She'd mentioned him a few times after he transferred to her department, always with the same tone. Jonathan's a lot, but he's smart. Jonathan says I should be up for promotion. Jonathan's the one who booked the steakhouse for the client dinner. I had no reason to be suspicious back then. Now, I had every reason. My hands trembled as I clicked through the rest of the photos. Brooke and Jonathan at what looked like a country cottage. Her in that same dress, barefoot, holding a glass of wine. Him behind her on a porch swing, their legs tangled like they'd done it 100 times. A photo of just him, shirtless, grilling. A selfie of the two of them in bed, her head resting on his chest, half her face obscured. I stopped there. I didn't need to see more. That moment, staring at that image, was like falling into ice water. Not just because she had betrayed me, but because she hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. These weren't secrets locked behind passwords or burner apps. They were right there in our shared drive. As if she'd forgotten I existed. Or just didn't care. I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. And what made it worse? I had been in Texas when these photos were taken. At my dad's house, sorting through his old tools, packing up his books, helping Claire plan a memorial that neither of us were emotionally ready for. While I was shouldering that grief, Brooke had been out here, playing house with someone else. A wave of nausea swept over me. I stood up, paced the room, sat back down, stood up again. My body didn't know what to do with the information. My brain kept looping the same images. Her smile. His hand. The bed. The porch. I tried to rationalize, maybe it was older than it looked. Maybe this was before Texas. But I knew better. The wine in the photo was the same bottle she brought home last week, claiming she found it at a specialty store. The cottage's porch light? I recognized it from a rental listing I'd once seen when we were planning a trip we never took. It was recent. It was real. It was undeniable. I sat back down and looked through the metadata of the photos. Timestamps confirmed everything. 2 nights ago. While I was crying in a guest room that smelled like old leather and mothballs, she was wrapped around another man. And the worst part? She didn't even text me that night. Not a single "thinking of you" or "how's your sister?" She'd gone completely silent. And now I understood why. I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just felt this heavy, cold fog wrap around me. The kind that makes everything muffled. Distant. I clicked back to the beginning. The first photo. Her smiling in that dress. I had complimented that dress once. Told her she looked like she stepped out of a movie. She'd worn it on our anniversary 2 years ago. Said it was too extra for most occasions, but she kept it anyway. Now I couldn't look at it without feeling sick. For a moment I considered calling her. Asking directly. Forcing the conversation. But what was the point? The evidence was right here, pixelated and permanent. I thought about all the little lies she'd told recently, how they had piled up, one on top of the other, like kindling. This was the match. It had all burned down and I was just the last to notice. I closed the laptop. Sat back in the chair. My heart was racing, but my body felt still. Like I had passed a threshold. Like something had broken and would never quite fit back into place. Outside, the sky had turned gray. Clouds moved in. Rain tapped lightly on the windows. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and just stood there watching the rain, glass in hand, feeling like a stranger in my own home. Every creak of the floor, every photo frame on the wall, every dish in the sink, none of it felt real anymore. I knew I couldn't pretend. Not after this. She had crossed a line. And even if she tried to talk her way out of it, I couldn't unsee what I'd seen. This wasn't some vague suspicion or a moment taken out of context. It was concrete. It was her choosing someone else while I was burying my father. And that, more than the photos, more than the lies, that was what shattered me. Because betrayal is one thing. But doing it while I was in pain? That's a different kind of cruelty. Later that afternoon, she sent me a text. Thinking of you. Hope things are going okay out there. Let me know if you need anything. Miss you. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone. She had missed me, all right. Just not in the way she thought. That evening was quiet in the kind of way that makes your ears ring. The kind of quiet that isn't peace, it's pressure. I got home around 5:30, earlier than usual. I didn't text her to let her know. I didn't need to. I wanted to see what would happen naturally. I sat at the kitchen table in silence, staring at the wall like it might say something if I looked long enough. Outside, it had started to drizzle. The light through the window had that late autumn softness, like the whole world was tiptoeing around something it didn't want to disturb. Her car pulled into the driveway at 6:07. Right on cue. I heard the engine shut off, the familiar chirp of the lock, her heels on the walkway. My pulse didn't rise. My stomach didn't churn. That had all passed. Now there was only a strange, almost clinical clarity. The door opened. Hey babe, she called out like nothing was wrong. You're home early. I didn't respond right away. Just sat there. The silence stretched until it got uncomfortable. She walked into the kitchen, stopped when she saw me. Her expression flickered, not panic, just surprise. Then it settled into a smile. One she'd practiced. "You okay?" she asked, walking over to kiss the top of my head. I let her. Said nothing. She placed her bag on the counter, started pulling out a plastic container, some overpriced takeout salad, I guessed. Crazy day at the office. "Jonathan screwed up the presentation slides again," she said, not looking at me. "Had to stay late and fix the whole deck. We've got that new client coming in from Denver, and of course, everyone's freaking out about it. You know how it is. Jonathan." She said his name so easily. Like it didn't carry any extra weight. Like he was just some coworker she barely noticed. She poured herself a glass of wine, leaned against the counter, finally facing me. "You okay?" she asked again, softer this time. "You're being really quiet." I looked at her. Really looked at her. Her makeup was still fresh. Hair done. That same black coat she'd worn in one of the cottage photos was hanging on the back of a chair. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it quickly, then flipped it face down. I took a breath. "I'm fine," I said. She tilted her head. "You sure? You look like something's bothering you." There it was, the invitation. The bait. I could have taken it. Could have slammed my hand on the table, demanded answers, thrown the photos in her face, asked her what kind of person does that while their husband is burying his father. But I didn't. Because I realized something in that moment: she was never going to confess. Not unless she had no other choice. And even then, it wouldn't be for me, it would be for her own conscience. To make herself feel like she did the right thing after doing every wrong thing possible. So I lied. "Just tired," I said. "Didn't sleep much last night." She nodded, visibly relieved. "Yeah, I figured. Texas must have been brutal. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you. Work's been insane." She said it like it was an apology. Like I should thank her for it. "It's fine," I said flatly. We ate dinner in near silence. She sat across from me, scrolling through her phone between bites of quinoa and whatever else was in that overpriced bowl. Every few minutes, her screen lit up. She would tilt it slightly, thumb tapping quick replies. I could see the tension in her shoulders every time it buzzed. Afterward, she offered to do the dishes. I declined. Said I wanted to clear my head. She shrugged. "I'm gonna shower. Long day." I watched her walk away. Calm. Untouched. Unbothered. I turned to the sink, rinsed my plate, dried my hands slowly, and stared out the kitchen window. And that's when it hit me: I wasn't hurt anymore. I was focused. I realized I didn't want a confession. I didn't want to fight. I didn't even want the truth, not from her mouth. I already had it. What I wanted now was out. Not just from the marriage, but from the entire false version of my life I had been living. Brooke thought she still had control. Thought she was balancing her fantasy with her reality. Thought I was just the tired husband who would keep showing up, keep trusting, keep forgiving. She didn't know that I was already gone in every way that mattered. And that was my advantage. She hadn't seen the moment everything changed for me, but I had. It wasn't the photos. It wasn't even Jonathan. It was the way she carried herself after it. Like I was the fool. Like I wasn't supposed to notice the shift in her tone, her habits, her phone glued to her side. Like I'd just keep clinging to a version of her that didn't exist anymore. She walked back in 20 minutes later, wrapped in a robe, hair damp. She smiled like nothing was wrong. I nodded, muted the TV, and said goodnight before heading upstairs early. I told her I was exhausted. She believed me. As soon as I got to the bedroom, I opened my phone and began looking up divorce attorneys. I didn't care how messy it would be. I didn't care if it took months. What mattered was that I would walk away with my dignity intact. She had already taken my trust, my time, and my sense of home. She wasn't getting my peace. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling in silence. I could hear her moving around downstairs, then the click of her bedroom door. Probably texting him. Planning the next business dinner. I didn't care. I had made my decision. No explosions. No warnings. I'd handle it quietly. Cleanly. Surgically. I'd already beg *N to disappear from her life. And soon enough, she'd realize just how much she had lost right when it was too late to fix it. The next morning, I woke up before the alarm. Not groggy. Not tired. Just aware. Awake in a way I hadn't been in months. Years, maybe? I laid there for a few minutes, listening to the sounds of the house, the creak of the vents, the hum of the fridge, Brooke's muffled footsteps downstairs as she got ready for work. She was always up first on Wednesdays. She had a team sync at 8 a.m. sharp, something she once told me was just code for grabbing coffee and gossiping with the product leads. I used to think it was funny. Endearing, even. Now, every word she said felt like it came wrapped in an invisible question mark. She didn't poke her head in before she left. Didn't say goodbye or text me later. Just disappeared into her carefully managed schedule, assuming I was still asleep. I let her believe it. By 8:15, I was showered, dressed, and sitting at my desk with a notepad in front of me. At the top, I wrote, "Exit plan." 2 words. Underlined. I stared at them for a long moment, then picked up my pen and got to work. The first step was obvious: separate finances. We had a joint checking account and a joint savings account. Both were practical when things were good. But they also gave her access to every dollar I earned, and I was done funding her double life. Quietly, I logged into our bank portal. I didn't make any sudden moves. Just reviewed the last few weeks. There were more restaurant charges than I'd expected. Midweek dinners. Uber rides from unfamiliar neighborhoods. One charge from a boutique hotel downtown, a name I remembered because we had once joked about how overpriced it was. I opened a new bank account in my name only. A different institution altogether. I did it online, quick and easy. Then I scheduled a transfer, just enough to cover the majority of what I'd personally deposited over the last few months. Nothing too dramatic. Nothing that would set off alarms. Just enough to create space. Step 2, documentation. I copied every photo from the cloud drive to an encrypted folder. Saved the metadata, the timestamps, the file names. I included the email notifications from the sync logs. I compiled **TS of her texts, nothing explicit, just enough to demonstrate patterns. The late-night replies. The phone calls labeled work that aligned with those same photos. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted preparation. If she wanted to fight, I wasn't going in blind. By noon, I was in touch with a lawyer. Stevens and Hale, top-tier firm. They specialized in family law and came highly recommended by a friend who'd gone through something similar the year before. The intake call was direct. "Have you confronted her yet?" the paralegal asked. "No." "Do you plan to?" "Not until I'm protected." She paused. Smart. We scheduled a meeting for Friday. I didn't hesitate. Told her I bring everything. That evening, I left the office early and went home to pack. Not all my things. Just the essentials: passport, documents, my dad's photos, some clothes, my guitar. I put it all in 2 suitcases and a weathered duffel bag. She wouldn't be home until late. Team dinner, she'd said that morning. Probably Jonathan. Probably more than dinner. I wasn't mad anymore. That part was over. I was empty, but focused. Around 6:45 p.m., I walked through the house slowly. Room by room. It didn't feel like mine anymore. Every corner carried a shadow. Our wedding photo on the mantle. The plant I bought her last Valentine's Day. The scratch on the hardwood from when we tried to move the couch ourselves. All of it meant something once. Now it just looked like a movie set someone had left behind. Before I left, I placed a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside, a simple typed note. "Brooke, I know. I know about Jonathan. I know about the cottage. I know you weren't alone while I was burying my father. Don't worry, I'm not going to make a scene. I'm not going to show up at your work. I'm not even angry anymore. I just don't want to live in a lie. Consider this my way of stepping out of it. Please don't contact me. The rest will be handled through legal channels. Mark." I didn't sign it with love. I didn't write a goodbye. Just my name. It was enough. I took one last look around the kitchen. The fridge still had the magnet from our anniversary trip to Oregon. The coffee maker she loved. The wine rack with 1 bottle left, probably reserved for her next business dinner. I walked out the door, locked it behind me, and didn't look back. My new place was a short-term rental, furnished, anonymous, sterile in a comforting way. No shared memories. No hidden meanings in the furniture or paint colors. Just clean walls and space to breathe. I unpacked what I needed, set the rest aside, sat on the edge of the bed, and felt nothing, which strangely felt like peace. Later that night, my phone buzzed. "Brooke, you left early. Everything okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. She was typing, then rethinking, then typing again, trying to find the right angle. I turned off my phone and dropped it face down. I wouldn't respond. I had nothing left to say. She'd had her chance to be honest. Instead, she chose layers of lies. Wrapped in smiles, softened with jokes, glossed over with wine and spa days and corporate jargon. Now she could sit with the silence. By Friday morning, my lawyer had the petition ready. Clean, professional, no unnecessary aggression, but firm. Stevens advised me not to serve her yet. "Wait a week," he said. "Let her come to you first. Let her wonder. That weekend, she called twice. I didn't answer. On Sunday, she texted again. Hey, where are you? Can we talk? I'm really worried. I almost laughed. Worried. Worried now. Too late. Monday came and I dropped off the signed documents at the firm. They'd serve her at work, neutral ground. No drama. No theatrics. That night, I drove past our house. The lights were on. Her car in the driveway. Same as always. Nothing had changed there. But everything had changed for me. I was done being the husband who made excuses. Done being the one who asked for truth and got half smiles in return. I wasn't going to play a supporting role in a story she had rewritten without telling me. This was my story now. And I was starting a new chapter. Alone but not lost. Detached but not broken. Free not because she let me go, but because I chose to leave. The silence didn't last long. By the time the papers were served, my phone lit up like a warning flare. First came the messages. Long blocks of text, full of questions, accusations, apologies. Then the calls. Then her parents, reaching out with concern-tinged confusion. Mark? What's going on? Brooke's a mess. Mutual friends started circling, like witnesses unsure which side of the story to believe. Brooke played every card. She cried. She minimized. It didn't mean anything. She shifted blame. You were distant. You shut down after your dad died. She spun it like we were just struggling, like it was salvageable, like I'd overreacted. What none of them understood was that the betrayal didn't begin with Jonathan. It began when she chose herself, fully and selfishly, in the moment I needed her most. And I didn't need to prove that to anyone. For 14 days, during the loneliest time in my life, she chose absence. Now she wanted access again. So I blocked her. Not out of anger, but preservation. I wasn't going to be the man endlessly dragged through cycles of guilt and manipulation. I had given her a decade. I wasn't giving her a second chance at the wreckage. She had silenced me once. Now I was doing the same. This time with clarity. 3 months passed. The divorce went through without theatrics. She didn't contest it. Maybe she thought her silence would earn back favor. Maybe she knew there was nothing to say that would change the outcome. One day, a package showed up at my new place. No note, just a small box of keepsakes. Old receipts, a coaster from our first date, and a cheap key holder my father had once given me. I kept the key holder. The rest I threw out. That was her final gesture. Neat, almost sterile, like she wanted to wrap it all in a bow and call it closure. Her family said I was being cold. Friends told me to be softer, more forgiving. But they hadn't been there during those long, sleepless nights. They didn't know what it felt like to be forgotten in real time. I didn't want revenge. I wanted dignity. And dignity, I learned, is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't throw stones. It just walks away with its head high. I built a new space for myself. Small, clean, honest. Nothing fancy but mine. I started over, not as a broken man, but one who chose himself after being left in the dark too long. Brooke was no longer part of my story. Only the lesson remained. Love without respect isn't love. And my self-worth is not up for debate. Not anymore.